it's me again, and this is the 8th and 9th video journal entry for my International Public Relations class. I was very bad, and after our 8th lesson, which happened to be right before the Christmas break, I totally forgot to film a video journal. I got sort of swept up in the whole Christmas, and then after Christmas I was doing assignments and things, and I just totally sort of forgot about this. But I'm back, and I'll start off with week 8. We looked at the 5th final moment in the circuit of culture, which was identity. I had to sort of look back at sort of some of my notes to try and remember exactly what we talked about, and try to look at what I sort of thought as we were going through our discussion. And basically, I guess what I took away most from our discussion was looking at the way identity is fluid and how we identify with certain groups, and sometimes it's based on where we were born, or how sort of parents raised us, what religion we were raised by, what I guess that all changes our identity. But then we can move, and who we identify with changes, or we make new friends, or we go and live in another country, or we just get older, and the way we sort of identify ourselves and the way we see ourselves changes. And I guess when you're sort of working within a in a PR context, I guess it impacts on you in a way that, or in your campaign preparation, in that you can't just say, okay, these are my target stakeholders, and this is the way they see themselves, and this is who they identify with, and this is their identity, because that will change, and our interaction with them will change. If by increasing their knowledge we're changing their identity and changing things about, really making sure that you know who you're talking to and who you're building relations with. And if something changes, then you change your strategy and you find another way to make it work. We talked about how identity is not a binary opposition. Just because I'm a woman, I'm not a woman just because I'm not a man. And it's important to know that this is not true, because that will lead to stereotypes and marginalisation, I guess, which is definitely not what we want to do as a PR practitioner. Again, we talked about what I said before about identities are constantly in flux, that there's no linear unfolding of our identity, which, when you sort of think about it logically, again, I think I've said this so many times throughout these journals, is that a lot of it makes perfect logical sense when you think about it this way. It's just that, I guess, the view that we generally take, sort of this non-postmodernist look, because this class is the first time where we've taken this view. You just don't consider sort of things in this way, but when you sort of read the lovely textbook and when we sort of talk about things in class, they do make a lot of sense. So yeah, I find that that's probably one of my biggest sort of things that I've taken away from this, is that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about makes perfect logical sense, and it seems odd that everyone doesn't think this way, I guess. So we sort of move on to week 9, which we looked at bringing together the whole circuit of culture, and we talked about sort of the main thing that we looked at how the different models of international public relations are. And what the textbook was suggesting was the cultural economic model. Basically what we sort of talked about, and what I took away from it, was that in life, sort of, I guess definitely it's still the case today, that a lot of things are economically driven. It's all about the bottom line, and we've sort of added things in with triple bottom line reporting and things like that, trying to take in corporate social responsibility and being environmentally friendly, and sort of getting to know your consumers and your publics and every sort of facet of communications, whether it be marketing, advertising, event management, just management and business in general, sort of bring those things into account and are really big on this sort of push towards getting to know who you're targeting before you sort of create messages for them, create marketing ideas or advertising ideas for them. But in the end, it is still based on that economic bottom line that you have to make the money for your shareholders. You want your business to be profitable, and I can see why that is necessary in some cases. Money does, I guess, in some ways make the world go round, and I don't think that will change anytime soon. But I like the idea that instead of just communicating for the sake of communicating, by building those relationships with your target public or your target stakeholders, and by trying to do right by them, the bottom line will follow. That by building those relationships, you are likely to be successful in business. And I think that why that may be sort of the normative theory, best practice, idealistic view, I think that there's definitely some I guess something that backs that up. I don't think that people can sort of make these statements without having sort of some kind of proof that that's worked in the corporate world. And I kind of hope that if I sort of, as I go along in my sort of career, that I get to work for companies that believe that, and or at least strive to do that. I know that nobody's perfect, and it's the same, definitely no company's perfect, but it would be nice for those in power, the management, CEOs, board of directors, whatever, to truly believe that it's in the best interest of the company to do the best they can by the people that work for them, whether it be those who their clients, or whether the people that actually work within the company, or there's people who are contributors in some way, whether they be suppliers or whatever. But yeah, I think that would be, that's a nice notion. And we talked about in class how it's difficult that there is a structure for public relations, and you go along and you do your research and you come up with your plan, and then you put your plan into action, and then you evaluate it, and there's this sort of linear process, one step along the other, and in the end you have to be accountable. And we talked about what you can do within that linear structure to try and take on these post-modernistic principles that we've talked about throughout this course, and the idea of doing constant evaluation, which was one of the things I think I picked up in a previous vlog about how I really like the idea of constantly evaluating and re-evaluating and changing your strategy as you go along, as opposed to just evaluating at the end. And the whole sort of point of the lecture was about bringing together the circuit of culture. And again, we recapped the fact that things like power and culture and identity are key across the board, and how we as public relations practitioners act as cultural intermediaries. In terms of sort of other stuff that I've been thinking about towards the class, we obviously have over the break and during the past few weeks been working on our group assignment, and overall I think it's been going well. We've pretty much finished our report. I kind of find that every time I sit in class, each class that we've sort of had, we think of new things to add, and our document is already, I can say this now, way too long, but it's been good in a way to get all this stuff out and go through this process, because we have, even though I've sort of, along the way I can see that we sort of went overboard in a lot of places, that we learned more. In terms of working together, I think it's always going to be hard. I have never had the best experiences with group work. I think most people tend to say that. It's not that I feel like I can't work in a group, it's that I feel like our setting and just the whole sort of uni experience, the way that we have it, isn't conducive to great group work. we all live in different areas. I know I live 2 hours away from uni, and the only time I'm sort of there is if I have class. I can't afford to sort of spend 4 hours like back and forth traveling for sort of an hour meeting or things like that. So we don't sort of have, I've never sort of had that opportunity to sort of be close by, so you can't sort of work together like sort of sitting there. And then in terms of people's work schedules and things like that, everyone's sort of all over the place, that it's just it's really hard to sort of get together. Whereas I guess some of my lecturers, sort of when we've had these problems, so I've been really understanding and seek to try and find ways to help us deal with the fact that it's not quite the same as being in industry and maybe working together in a team in a workplace. Because when you're in a team in a workplace, you generally, this is all generalization, but you're generally, at least you're there at the same time, you maybe aim for the same standards, you're being held accountable in the same way, you might have the same background, or at least almost the same sort of level of experience and knowledge. Obviously there'll be some variations, but you also have the same, we'd hope, close to the same desire to do what you're doing. Whereas I find at uni, again, people are at different stages, people come from are committed at different levels. I always feel that I've been sort of highly committed, maybe even overly committed to my coursework, and then I've been put in groups with people who sort of are happy with the whole idea of peers get degrees and are happy to just pass. So that definitely causes some conflict and makes it difficult. I found working in this particular group that it's been quite good. There's sort of 2 of us who are public relations students, and we have a journalism student and a marketing student. So there's sort of a different mix there, and there have been some difficulties trying to sort of trying to keep things PR based. That's always difficult, so that's not something that we've sort of struggled with purely because we're not all PR backgrounds. That's something that I guess we'd all struggle with anyway. There's also there is a sort of a slightly differing level in our experience, but that hasn't been too bad. This is the first time ever in a group where I haven't been the leader, which is sort of different for me. I actually don't mind. Generally, I don't necessarily always want to be the leader in groups. I don't necessarily feel that I have the knowledge or the experience to be the leader in the groups, but often my group work I end up being purely because I was sort of the most dedicated, and it was sort of nice to not be that person in this particular group and to get to sort of learn something. I'm actually sort of in a group where one of the other people is sort of older and has had more experience in PR than me, and it's been really nice to learn from her and to, I don't know, just get a different experience in the group thing. I have felt, however, something I've never experienced before in group work, which is this almost, I don't know, it's like guilt. I usually have to do more than my fair share of the assignments, and I've sort of become used to it. Although it frustrates me, usually I'm doing 75–80% of the assignments that come along, and this is the first time where I haven't had to do that. And because of that, I actually felt, yeah, like I wasn't doing enough, which is new for me, something that I just sort of was reflecting on the other day, that yeah, I almost, because I wasn't doing sort of more than my share of that, I actually felt guilty, like I wasn't doing enough. But I'm kind of getting over that. I don't mind, and like I said, it's been a good experience for me, and I've learnt a lot. And we've got, I'll show you, this very long document which I'm slowly sort of reading through. Usually I know the document back to front because, like I said, I do a lot of the work, but this is the first time where there's sort of actually been bits and I go through and read it and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, and I learned something, which has been very positive for me, and I'm glad that I've gotten that experience. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it there, and I will see you next time. Bye.